Hello and welcome to the Battlebots. Sorry this is late. This was a hard episode to write. It's pretty appropriate that on the day I started writing this episode, Storm Claudia rolled into town. This storm doesn't bring foul weather with it, but as the sequel to successor of non-qualifier Storm, Storm 2 was actually meant for Battlebots. However, the season it was meant for was Season 6, which at the time, 2002, 2003, it didn't happen. The sixth series of Battlebots was the first of the ABC series. And thus, the black and blue invertible box on wheels entered the second series of Robot Wars Extreme instead, entering the New Blood tournament and landing in Heat C. Incidentally, quick side note, Storm 2 likely wouldn't have got much, if any, screen time on Battlebots. New Cruelty, a larger box on wheels, had only one fight that made it to air in Season 5.0, and it made the Super Heavyweight finals in Season 4.0. Like New Cruelty, Storm 2 was a, at first glance, weaponless bot when it made its debut. New Cruelty never got a weapon, Storm 2 later did. However, like New Cruelty, Storm 2's stats list listed it as a ram. In short, Storm 2's weapon is Storm 2. First up for Storm 2 in the New Blood tournament was Massive Vertical Spinner Revolution 2, and I mean massive. There was like all manner of blades on it. It's a weapon. It's like you send the twirly bit of a combine harvester into the arena. That's Revolution 2. And Horizontal Spinner Direct Action. Storm 2 went after Direct Action early on, ramming it into a wall right near Mr. Psycho. This may sound to you like standard tornado tactics, and you'd be right. Storm 2 is pretty much Tornado's heir apparent. Anyway, Storm 2 left Direct Action be, just waiting for Direct Action to escape whilst avoiding tangling with a hammer-wielding house robot. Because hammers, like boxes in Storm 2, is very much a box. Direct Action got out of there eventually, but once it was free, Storm 2 and Revolution 2 took it in turns to go after Direct Action. The partnership didn't get off to the greatest start, but Direct Action was barely moving. One of Storm 2's attacks sent Direct Action straight back to Mr. Psycho, but this time Direct Action noped out of there, and Storm 2 briefly showed up in Mr. Psycho's corner before noping out with some speed and annoying Revolution 2. Then Storm 2 attacked Direct Action a lot, mainly driving into the horizontal spinner, or driving into the horizontal spinner bot. When both bots got near Mr. Psycho, Storm 2 proved to be too darn quick for Mr. Psycho's hammer. Storm 2 then rammed Direct Action into a wall before leaving the horizontal spinner. Direct Action then opened the pit, which it was right next to the release. So Storm 2 tried to get Direct Action into the pit. They missed and nearly went down themselves, but Direct Action turned around and fell in. Oops. Next up was Horizontal Bar Spinner Chopper. Storm 2 pushed Chopper around early on, taking Chopper to a wall and turning it over. Chopper, unable to self-right, was done and basically stuck in a corner. Storm 2 stayed out of the way as Chopper was counted out, axed, flew Airfloor Flipper twice, cooked, and pitted. Next up for Storm 2 was Axebot ICU. So, I see you. Well, I don't see you, but you see me. But anyway. Storm 2 drove into ICU so hard, ICU ended up going over Storm 2 and losing a bunch of its decorative table tennis ball eyes. That's normal for an ICU fight, I think. ICU was also dead, so Storm 2 sent ICU to the floor flipper where ICU was counted out. Storm 2 stayed well clear as the house robot took care of ICU. ICU flew a floor flipper, had balls land on it, and got pitted. So that sent Storm 2 to the New Blood Grand Final, where first it faced Hammerbot Thor. Small problem here. Thor is the god of thunder, and you get thunder in storms. However, Team Storm were in no mood to bow down and worship Thor. No, for them it was more, Viva la Revolution! Viva la Revolution! So, basically, Ragnarok? I'm pretty sure Ragnarok didn't involve any robots, so I should probably look into that. It's been a while since I've looked into anything related to Norse mythology. Is there a Norse mythology for Dummies book? Anyway, Storm 2's stats now said it was a full body hammer, which is how the team have been describing Storm 2. So, before we go into the fight, Thor had a hammer. Storm 2 is a hammer. And begin. Storm 2 danced around Thor earlier on, Thor unable to land a hammer blow because Storm 2 is just too darn fast. Storm 2 did get a pushing attack in, but backed off before Thor could hammer Storm 2. Thor also retreated alarmingly close to a corner occupied by Mr. Psycho. One round later, Thor was too close to Mr. Psycho and got hammered, but got away. Until Storm 2 rammed Thor into the pit release, opening the pit and carrying Thor, which was now venting CO2. That happens to Thor quite a bit in the reboot. So Storm 2 tried to pit Thor but failed, though this time Storm 2 did not end up in danger of pitting itself. Neither did Thor. Both bots got away from the pit, but it wasn't long before Storm 2 rammed Thor into an arena wall. Storm 2 briefly wore Thor as a hat before returning Thor to the dance floor. Thor then elected to lure Storm 2 close to the pit, so Storm 2 went over and elected to try and push Thor into the pit. Thor was having none of this and got away. Storm 2 got some more push attacks in, but it was Thor who got the last shoving before time ran out in the judges' recording. They ruled in favour of Storm 2. So, in the final of the New Blood tournament, Storm 2 placed front hinged flipper mute. The two bots briefly danced around each other before Storm 2 pushed mute across the arena, immediately sending mute to an arena wall where it got away. Mute got a chance to get an attack over its own in, but Storm 2 got away before Mute could flip Storm 2. The two bots danced around each other for a while before Mute finally got to flipping. This did nothing, as Mute had Storm 2 pinned against an arena wall at the time. Now, if Mute had been a rear hinged flipper, Storm 2 might have been out of the arena. But, nope. Not everyone can be Firestorm. A pushing war ensued, one that Mute won. Storm 2 got away to push Mute from the side, which ultimately led to the two bots dancing around each other. Pushing war ensued again, but this time Storm 2 won and duly pushed Mute around. Until Storm 2 got too close to dead metal asses. Storm 2 got away by virtue of being very low and very flat. It wasn't long before Storm 2 was pushing Mute around, which led to Mute pushing Storm 2, which led to Storm 2 trying to annoy dead metal, which led to Mute flipping Storm 2. Being invertible, this was no problem, so Storm 2 pushed Mute some more before getting flipped a second time. Storm 2 pushed Mute some more, and the two bots were separate when time ran out and the judges were called in. They ruled in favour of Storm 2 by 1 single point, which meant Storm 2 were the New Blood champions. Jesus. So good, so good. Anyway, that win got Storm 2 all the rewards for being the New Blood champion, which was an automatic place in Series 7, as well as a nice shiny trophy. They got in as the 16th seed and landed in Heat I. Storm 2 now had a lifter. I mentioned it was going to get an active weapon to comply with new active weapon rules. Storm 2 drew 2 horizontal spinners in Mayhem and Supernova and a flipper in Rhino, which also happened to have a flywheel. Storm 2's first target was Rhino, which it shoved into a wall before backing off a tiny bit, but it was still near when Supernova removed Mayhem's tyres. Rhino, meanwhile, trying to flip Storm 2, but all its efforts did was leave an opening for Storm 2 to attack. It also just couldn't quite get anything going with the flipper. So, I got Rhino shoved into a wall again. And then Matilda's corner. Matilda broke the arena wall, but the fight kept going. A competitor would never get away with that. Bad Matilda. Anyway, Mayhem was counted out because it was dead, and Supernova and Storm 2 briefly went after Rhino together until Storm 2 shoved Supernova straight into the Kilowatts tracks. Okay, attacking a house robot is something I can definitely get on board with. Storm 2 rammed Supernova into a wall and onto its side. Supernova was able to get back onto its wheels, but after that it could move no more and was counted out as well. So that got Storm 2 to the second round, and there it faced Tracked Lifter Trax. That's Trax. YouTube subtitles, I know you struggle with my voice. Storm 2 rammed Trax into a wall early on before doing its level best to introduce Trax to as many arena walls as possible. Remember, heir apparent to Tornado. Storm 2 also opened the pit via breaking the pit release button, the Vandal, but that does not stop a fight, and resumed pushing Trax into walls, and also the Flame Pit. But not Mr. Psycho. Trax drove too close to the hammer-wielding house robot. Though Storm 2 did send Trax straight back to Mr. Psycho once it was released, Storm 2 also tried to send Trax into the pit, but Trax got away and tried to lure Storm 2 to come back as time ran out and the judges were called in. They ruled in favour of Storm 2. Next up for Storm 2 was Axebot the Steel Avenger. The Steel Avenger tried to axe Storm 2, missed because 16th seeds were too darn fast, and ended up hitting the arena dance floor with their axe and getting stuck. The Steel Avenger got free, but Storm 2 rammed the Steel Avenger into an arena wall. The Steel Avenger got away. Storm 2 pushed the ref rod before driving underneath the Steel Avenger, pushing the Axebot to Growler's corner. The Steel Avenger got out of there, but after some dancing, Storm 2 got the Steel Avenger back in the corner. The Steel Avenger got away again, and once Storm 2 caught the Steel Avenger, it rammed the Axebot into a corner so hard the Steel Avenger went out of the arena. Well, Tornado would never win a fight like that. I mean, the ramming into a corner, that's standard Tornado tactics. Out of the arena? That's not something Tornado did. And it caused the message written on the bottom of the Steel Avenger, "Who did that?" to become visible. Well, to answer your question, Steel Avenger, it was Storm 2. So, through to the series semi-finals, Storm 2 next faced Flipper, the Grim Reaper. Storm 2 rammed the Grim Reaper into a wall right near Sergeant Bash, introducing the Grim Reaper to an angle grinder and lifting the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper got away and the two bots danced around each other until Storm 2 rammed the Grim Reaper into some walls. Still the heir apparent of Tornado after all. Storm 2 rammed the Grim Reaper into the pit release and the Grim Reaper got away, but not for long as Storm 2 pushed the Grim Reaper around some more, including into some walls. Shunt nearly got an axe blow on Storm 2 and the Grim Reaper tried to get a flip in, but Storm 2 was having none of it. So, more walls, more house robots, but not the pit. The Grim Reaper did not want to end up in a hole in the arena dance floor. Storm 2 also managed to get the Grim Reaper balanced on its rear panel. Storm 2's poking was to try and get the Grim Reaper more balanced on that rear panel, but had Shunt not nudged the Grim Reaper so much, that might have been the end of the fight. But the poking ultimately ended up with the Grim Reaper back on its wheels, so the fight carried on. Storm 2 rammed the Grim Reaper into a wall, and the Grim Reaper got away, but drove into Storm 2 as time ran out and the judges were called in. They ruled in favour of Storm 2. Next up for Storm 2 was front-hinged flipper Firestorm 5, the second seeds. Storm 2 tried to push Firestorm 5 around, but Firestorm 5 wasn't having any of that, so the two robots danced around each other instead. Storm 2 drove over Firestorm 5, but the second seeds just couldn't flip Storm 2. Storm 2 had gone over at the wrong angle. Storm 2 did get a push in and drove over Firestorm 5 again. Firestorm 5 still couldn't flip Storm 2, just because this time Storm 2 was too darn fast. Anyway, more dancing followed and Firestorm 5 drove into a wall. Storm 2 pushed Firestorm 5 into a wall, under the wall in the pit release, as well as close to Matilda and Growler, but neither house robot would bite. Firestorm 5 then got a push attack in on Storm 2 and drove over the 16th seed straight into an arena angle grinder. Storm 2 trying to make sure the second seed spent plenty of quality time with that angle grinder. And when that didn't work, towards the pit. When that didn't work, Firestorm 5 was sent to the angle grinder again, then Growler, then the pit. In that order. So, that put Storm 2 in the grand final, where first they faced a robot whose team had given Storm 2 a lot of help. The top seeds and defending champions, Rammer Tornado. Insert your favourite Master and versus Apprentice fights in the comment, though this is no Vader versus Obi-Wan. Less lava for one thing. The two robots danced around each other early on, before Storm 2 managed to push Tornado most of the way to an arena side wall before the defending champions got away. Interesting standard Tornado tactics being used against Tornado. Tornado then pushed Storm 2 into a wall. Tornado using standard Tornado tactics on its heir apparent. Once Storm 2 got free, the two bots danced around each other until Storm 2 turned Tornado over, which is not standard Tornado tactics. But then again, Storm 2 does have a lifter. This move did not immobilize Tornado, because invertible, but it did mean the scoop that Tornado had on was useless. And Storm 2 duly rammed Tornado into a corner, repeatedly. Tornado got sent flying by some of those attacks. The pit got opened and Tornado nearly got sent down it, but Storm 2 pushed Tornado until time ran out and the judges were called in. They ruled in favour of Storm 2, putting Storm 2 one win away from the title. That fight was against Full Body Spinner Typhoon 2. I'm sorry. Can't run away from it. Can't avoid it. It's time for that fight. time to rip all those plasters and band-aids and whatever everyone calls plasters off. Storm 2 ran into Typhoon 2 early on, causing Typhoon 2 to stop spinning briefly, but Typhoon 2 got back up to speed and a chase ensued. Storm 2 got a hit in, but Typhoon 2 just seemed to be running away. Typhoon 2 did land a hit on the wall and Storm 2, but Storm 2 caught, lifted and cooked Typhoon 2. Couldn't get Typhoon 2 turned over. But Typhoon 2 wasn't spinning and Storm 2 was able to take Typhoon 2 to Matilda. Typhoon 2 got away, but Storm 2 were able to shove Typhoon 2 into walls. Again, Typhoon 2 got away, spun up and broke the arena wall, causing a stoppage in the fight. See, I told you a competitor wouldn't have got away with breaking the arena wall. Typhoon 2, you complete and utter vandal. This wasn't Typhoon 2's first rodeo with arena damage. Anyway, the arena wall was repaired. Typhoon 2 was allowed to spin up before activate was called because reasons. And on the reception of the battle, Storm 2 pushed Typhoon 2 into Matilda's corner, trying to reduce Typhoon 2 to more arena walls. So why is that what happened last time Typhoon 2 hit a wall? It did stop Typhoon 2 from spinning, but hit on an imperfection in the arena wall, floor, Typhoon 2 that is, and got away. The pit was opened and Typhoon 2 came dangerously close to the pit, but escaped. A chase ensued and a hit or two from Storm 2 later. Typhoon 2 wasn't spinning and Storm 2 pushed Typhoon 2 into corners. But as time ran out on the fight, Storm 2 took a piece of visible but not major damage as Storm 2 lost part of its front wedge. Now, Typhoon 2 could have maybe torn more bits off, but there was not time left not enough time left in the fight for Typhoon 2 to do that. The judges were called in. A damage to the wedge caused the judges to rule in favour of Typhoon 2. No, it's not time yet. It's time for the World Championships, the third run of that tournament, which Storm 2 qualified for by doing so well in Series 7, i.e. being the runner-up, and do, of course, Tornado, and Walking German Horizontal Spinner Ansgar 3. Remember them? Storm 2 pushed the ref bot as Tornado went for Ansgar 3. Once the pit was opened, Tornado and Storm 2 joined forces to push Ansgar 3 into a corner. And they continued to do so after Ansgar 3 got away from Growl, ultimately leaving Ansgar 3 to roast on the flame pit. That bot never stood a chance. Storm 2 pushed Tornado into a corner for Tornado, got Ansgar 3 off the flame pit. Tornado then pushed Storm 2 into a wall, standard Tornado tactics, and pushed Storm 2 some more before Storm 2 turned the tables and rammed Tornado into walls. Then, after a near miss with Dead Metal, Tornado sent Storm 2 to Dead Metal, where Storm 2 gained a Battle Scar. This time the positioning allowed Dead Metal to actually be able to attack. But Tornado got Storm 2 free, which resulted in Storm 2 pushing Tornado across the arena, ramming Tornado into a wall so hard that Tornado ended up upside down. So again, Scoop was useless. Storm 2 pushed, lifted and rammed Tornado until time ran out and the judges were called in. They ruled in favour of Storm 2. Next up for Storm 2 was Dutch Grabber, Tough as Nails. Storm 2 drove straight into Tough as Nails early on, which sounds like a bad tactic when you're going against a robot that does that and specialises in dropping robots into the pit of oblivion. But instead of Tough as Nails pushing Storm 2 around, Storm 2 was pushing Tough as Nails around. This included into Mr. Psycho, who hammered Tough as Nails. Storm 2 got out of Tough as Nails' grip and proved he didn't need to be in the Dutchbot's grip to push Tough as Nails around and slam it into walls. One of these slams caused one of Tough as Nails' tyres to come off. So now in deep, deep trouble, because it only had one wheel to grip onto the arena floor, Tough as Nails opened the pit. A pushing war ensued and Tough as Nails was still able to push Storm 2, but Tough as Nails still ended up with a kill-lot and ultimately over the pit. Until Storm 2 backed off, and the second Storm 2 backed off, Tough as Nails dropped into the pit. Storm 2 even tried to put Tough as Nails' other tyre into the pit. In the final, because Storm 2 had won the fight and got through, Storm 2 faced Supernova, which was representing Sri Lanka in this tournament. The two robots danced around each other before a chase ensued, very quickly ended when Storm 2 caught Supernova and pushed it into a wall. Supernova got away and a brief bit of dancing followed, ending when Supernova hit Storm 2's front wedge. Storm 2 shrugged it off and pushed Supernova into another wall. Another hit landed Supernova on its side by an arena wall. Supernova desperately tried to self-right but failed. Supernova's efforts just tore a lovely big gash in the arena dance floor. Dance floor damage didn't stop fights till there. Well, there wasn't any stoppages due to dance floor damage in Series 8, so Series 9 was when dance floor damage could stop a fight. Anyway, Supernova was immobile, but shouldn't tangled with Storm 2 and part of the lifter stood full body hammer on an angle grinder. Supernova freed Storm 2, because it itself had got freed, and got repaid by getting a barrage of hits from an upside down Storm 2 as time ran out and the judges were called in. The judges deemed that Supernova should have actually been counted out because it had been immobile for too long when it was on its side by an arena wall, and Storm 2 were the world champions. Yep, we go again. So, as now we fast forward 12 years. Storm 2 returned for Series 8 with a vertical spinner option and 3 weapon options in total, and had several internal changes. Basically, there were supply issues when they were trying to get new motors, and unfortunately ended up with a slower Storm 2. Not snail's pace, but not the speedster it was in Series 7 and Extreme 2. It was also now black and red, which is a colour scheme change. It's nothing. And had been slotted in the Heat of Death, Heat D. In its first fight there, Storm 2 faced Flipper Eruption, Drum Spinner Sabretooth, and Horizontal Spinner Terror Turtle. Those who know the battle history of Sabretooth and Terror Turtle will pretty much have figured out how this worked out. Storm 2 pushed Eruption around early on before turning its attention to Terror Turtle and pushing it around the edge of the arena and over the flame pit. Lovely cooked turtle. Not. Once Eruption dealt with Sabretooth, it tended to Terror Turtle. Somehow, Terror Turtle ended up upside down. Storm 2 backed off, but helped Eruption send Terror Turtle to the spikes. Terror Turtle got away, so Eruption flipped Terror Turtle out of the arena. Eruption was Storm 2's first opponent in the round robin stages that they both got through to. And Team Storm got to explain that how some of their gadgets works to a judge. One of the internal changes that did not go against Storm 2. Storm 2 and Eruption met in the middle of the arena, Storm 2 pushing Eruption to secure, but having to escape secure themselves. and their escape was right at the flame pit. So this is a risky escape, but Sick-a-Lot pushed them there. Storm 2 and Eruption tried to push each other, and it was Storm 2 who got the upper hand, pushing Eruption into a corner and ultimately to a floor flipper, which sent Eruption flying, allowing Storm 2 to open the pit after Eruption had multiple self-rising attempts. Some of them just landed Eruption upside down. It's a pretty powerful flipper. Eruption then tried to send Storm 2 to Sick-a-Lot, but had to escape the house robot themselves. Storm 2 pushed Eruption some more before Eruption finally got a flip in on Storm 2, but it landed on its wheels and ended up wearing Eruption as a hat. Storm 2 managed to push Eruption into a wall, but Eruption escaped, and as time ran out, ahead of a judge's decision, Storm 2 only moved when Eruption flipped it, which meant it was a bit immobile. But Storm 2 got the win anyway, via a split decision. Next up for Storm 2 was another flipper, Apollo. Storm 2 pushed Apollo early on, but this frequently ended with Apollo riding atop Storm 2, until Apollo landed a big flip and turned Storm 2 over. Apollo sent Storm 2 to the floor flipper while Storm 2 was trying to self-right. Okay, it was invertible, but it's always better on its wheels. Storm 2 was upside down for quite a while as Apollo pushed Storm 2 around, but Storm 2 managed to self-right. Of course, Apollo flipped Storm 2 again, but Storm 2 self-righted at once. It was at this point when Apollo lost a drive chain, and Storm 2 opened the pit. Apollo managed to get into a corner, tangled with dead metal, and flipped it over. This is why I like Apollo. Apollo got out and... well, it's part of why I like Apollo. Apollo got out and flipped Storm 2 again, which self-righted before doing the "I'm too darn quick for you" drive it to Thor, right in front of Apollo, despite the slower speeds. That kind of thing is so much easier when your opponent has lost half its drive. Storm 2 then sent Apollo to Matilda, which tried to flip Matilda before successfully flipping a second house robot. Storm 2 then pushed Apollo around, nearly getting the flipper in the pit, but missed. Apollo's flipper was also out of commission. As time ran out and the judges were called in, Storm 2 was on the attack and nearly got Apollo in the pit again. The judges ruled in favour of Apollo. Next up was horizontal undercutter spinner PP3D. Now this was a bit of a grudge match, as one of PP3D's humans was attached to none other than Typhoon 2. Storm 2 delivered a barrage of hits to PP3D early on, sending PP3D to a shunt in the process and causing audible internal damage to PP3D. PP3D did land a blow and got Storm 2 stuck on an arena spike, but Storm 2 got free and PP3D lost half its drive. So Storm 2 positioned PP3D on the pit square and opened it. PP3D tried to escape, but it turned around and fell into the pit. Gloop, 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 gloop. So, Storm 2 went into the heat final to face Apollo and to try for some vengeance, and without a proxy this time. The two robots prodded each other tentatively early on until Storm 2 pushed Apollo into a corner occupied by Shunt, where Apollo flipped Shunt. Storm 2 opened the pit and pushed Apollo around, but Apollo flipped Storm 2, chased Storm 2, flipped Storm 2 again, and Storm 2 ended up getting chased by Matilda. Storm 2 escaped, but drove into Apollo, which flipped Storm 2 onto its side, next to an arena wall, where Storm 2 could not self-right from. One more flip sent Storm 2 out of the arena. Now, Storm 2, having made the heat final, was still in line for the wild card, but coincidentally, The wildcard went to one of the bots that Storm 2 faced in the New Blood Champion. Well, not exactly the same, but it had evolved over years. But Thor got the wildcard. Storm 2 never returned after Series 8, though they're out of the arena flip. It did get used as, well, the out of the arena flip that Apollo inflicted on Storm 2 got used as a clip for flipping your opponent out of the arena can win you the fight. And I recall them, by all accounts, they helped fund PP3D when they had the crowdfunding, and praying for Sabretooth to get a win, and I'm pretty sure they were pretty lousy at predictions in Series 10, and I was lousy at them as well. And from what I've heard by the robot fighting things I follow, Storm 2 might be fighting again soon, at least I hope so. Okay, now it's time. It's hot take o'clock. There is an argument to be made that Storm 2 should have won Series 7. Typhoon 2 did have some internal injuries which weren't good. There were things that were pretty fundamental, from what I understand, and they weren't seen and just weren't taken into account and possibly not even known about. The judges never asked to see any internal damage. If they had seen the internal damage, there's a chance that it might have swung it in favour of Storm 2. I won't say Storm 2 were robbed, but they've got a case to say that they should have won. Typhoon 2 also have a case. They inflicted visible damage, and they were not completely, even with the internal injuries, they were not immobilised. As it is, Storm 2 was a robot that only lost to champions. I mean, Typhoon 2 and Apollo. There is no shame in losing to either of them. And, I mean, Storm 2 lasted 3 minutes with Typhoon 2 and did not end up going out in bin bags. It's worth noting that even when far from its best, it blunt force traumaed PP3D into a pit, gave Apollo a hard time, and scored a close win over future champion Eruption. And whilst I call Storm 2 the heir apparent to Tornado, it was an exciting bot to watch. I mean, the Steel of I feel that the fight against Steel Avenger kind of sums up Storm 2. Yeah, it rams you into walls, like Tornado did. But it's not Tornado. However, more recently, I wish I got this episode a few years earlier, someone on Reddit wrote a piece that indicated that Storm 2, particularly the team captain, may well have held a good shot him in the foot, and could well have caused PP3 to have to withdraw from Series 8, which I don't know the full story. The person who posted this article said they had evidence and didn't share. I reserve judgment because I want the receipts. So I'm not going to trust it entirely. As far as I'm concerned, I believe in innocent until proven guilty. If this turns out to be true, then it is a major black mark, or is a major black mark against an otherwise very good robot. Well, I enjoy watching most of its fights from Series 7. Not the final so much. But I do wonder if those accusations of basically sabotage are true, would it still be in a position where it could potentially fight again? I don't know. But hey, I am just a common fool. A common fool who's been to uni, but sometimes I can be a common fool. So, who's next? Taiki? I have never needed you to be so kind before. We've got Frenzy. Until next week, Callison244, out.